Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. We're talking about eyeshadow palettes today, but not just any group of eyeshadow palettes. These are the palettes within my collection that I am super excited about because they're all kind of fall themed or fall tones. You all know that I love my eyeshadow palettes, but you may or may not know how much I love the fall season. It is by far, without a doubt, my favorite season of all. The weather, the boots, the sweaters, and of course the makeup, and particularly eyeshadow palettes. I love fall tones when it comes to eyeshadows, and I have so many good palettes. So I did this one a little bit differently than what I typically do. I went through my collection and I just grabbed anything that I knew had some of my favorite fall tones in it. And then I realized that I had way too many palettes. So we're gonna actually go through all of them rather than me initially narrowing it down to like my top 10. I'm gonna show you guys all of them. I think there's like 20 or 25, but we'll go through them quickly. We're not gonna do any detailed swatching until the end when I'm gonna pick my top 5 amongst the bunch, and then we'll go through those in more detail and swatch them. It'll kind of be like an award ceremony where everyone gets a participation ribbon. I'm one of those parents. So we had better get into it, but before we do, if you are new here, a very special welcome to you. I hope that you enjoy this video today. Please consider subscribing to my channel before you leave, and also don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you know each time I upload a new video. And now let's take a look at my amazing fall eyeshadow palettes. All right guys, so I have a very large bin right here that is quite full. I know this is a little bit gluttonous, but my hopes in doing this, or my excuse for not narrowing things down initially, is that hopefully if you happen to own a couple of these within your collection, maybe you forgot about them or didn't really consider them like a fall eyeshadow palette, maybe it will be a good reminder for you to pull them back out and get some use out of them this fall. So these are in no particular order. We're just gonna kind of breeze through them. I'll briefly mention why I love them so much. Let's start with this one right here, a classic, my Natasha Denona Safari palette. Oh, one of the most beautiful color stories. Look at all these like fall tones. You get your warm browns, you get your plums, you have these beautiful greens and kind of deep teals that are just so earthy and gorgeous. They are all mattes, but all you need to go along with this palette, I'm not much of like an all matte look type of girl. I always have to throw a shimmer on my lids somewhere, or at least on my inner corner. But I am not opposed to reaching for either a highlighter or just a single shadow or into another palette just to get a champagne or something, which would go with any of these shades. It is still so glorious. I love it and look forward to reaching for this every single fall. And then from all matte, let's go to this one, which happened to be next, my Flower Beauty Jungle Lights palette. This, if you are into shimmers that are just insanely intense, these are absolutely insane. They're basically cream shadows. Let me just swatch a couple of these. I'm gonna try not to do this too much, but you guys have just got to see the intensity and metallic, like glorious metallicness of these shadows that are beautiful, and the tones are very fall appropriate. You have a gold, you have a couple different tones of bronze, you get these taupey shades of beautiful green. Great one. One I need to reach for more. It's one of my favorite, like, this is kind of different than a palette because it's just full of shimmers, but I absolutely love these. These are some of the best shimmers that I own. Next up, I've got a newer palette that I'm excited to get to know a little bit better this fall. This is the Mountain Trail palette from Sydney Grace. These are beautiful, deep green tones that I think are especially good for the fall season. In fact, this is probably not a palette I'll use any time of year except for in the fall, but they are absolutely lovely. I did mention recently that I feel like this is missing a lighter shade, but kind of like how I felt with the Natasha Denona, I can easily reach into something else to get a champagne or a light gold or some sort of light shimmer for my inner corner or eye that if I feel like I need it. But the tones in here are absolutely beautiful, and in the lovely Sydney Grace formula that you guys know I love so much. Here's another one that I think is such a good palette, and I don't feel like I give this one enough love on my channel for you guys, although I do reach into it quite often. It's the Persona Identity 2 palette. This is a very jewel toned palette that is a little bit on the smoky side. So there are some really rich shades in here. Not a lot of things in like that light to mid-tone range, basically, other than these 3 shades. Everything else is quite deep and dark inside here, but inside here you get every rich shade you could ever possibly want. Plums, rusty tones, greens, browns, oranges, even a steely navy blue. And although this one has like, it's heavy on the side of the deep shades, the 3 lighter shades that they give you are very well done. They go with anything else inside the palette. It's a great one. Love the Persona formula. Next I have one from Juvia's Place. You guys probably knew this one was going to show up. This is definitely one of my top palettes. The Nomad palette from Juvia's Place. Oh, one of the best palettes in my collection. I still need to buy a backup of this because I have a feeling this fall I might actually hit pan on this shade right here. One of my favorite lid shades in my entire collection. Just look at this glorious gold. Sorry guys, my lighting's a little weird today. I tried to turn off my ring light so that it wasn't reflecting in my glasses, but everything along the perimeter, Beautiful, beautiful tones for fall. I love these deep kind of unique green tones right here. They're so beautiful in the outer corner, used like on the lash line or to smoke things out. I even love the yellows and oranges. I think they're absolutely lovely, especially when combined with some of the other shades. I rave about this palette at least a handful of times a year. So my guess is if you've been watching me for a while and you've ever bought anything from me, it very well may be this palette right here. So pull it back out this fall. I also have in here my Too Faced Pumpkin Spice palette. This one I'm excited to use this fall because I feel like when I got it, I didn't use it a lot initially because I think I was like trying some other things out at the same time, and it smells so delicious. It's a shame I didn't get the like pumpkin spice feels that this gives. Other than it just being a good eyeshadow palette, it does smell amazing. So I will definitely try and use this a bit more this fall. I also had to mention this one, the Artemis palette from Alter Ego. This is meant to be a dupe for the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette, if you happen to own that one. Gorgeous. Oh man, look at that, you guys. I mean, this just looks like a drive up the canyon to me. It's stunning, some really beautiful formulas in here. I really think Alter Ego does a pretty good job duping the Natasha Denona formula. Maybe not exact, I think some things you do have to layer up a little bit or build up a little bit, but it's pretty darn close considering the cost savings going with these palettes right here, and this is such a great color story for fall. Ooh, this one right here, this one I am excited about. This is the Boudoir Noir palette from ColourPop. Look at these beautiful shades. This one's a little bit more on the soft, glitzy side. Like the shades aren't overly pigmented or bold or dark even, but you get some really pretty like shimmers or glitter toppers, even a pressed glitter right here. You can create some of the most beautiful, glamorous fall looks out of this palette. It's stunning. It's also a great Christmas, like winter seasonal palette as well. Great one. If you happen to own this one, it's another good one to pull out if you like fall tones. Next is my last remaining C Color Cosmetics palette that I have not decluttered, and it is the Unisex 3 palette. Oh, you guys, I forgot. This is supposed to dupe the Jeffree Star. I'll put it on the screen right here. I can't remember the name of the Jeffree Star palette this one is supposed to dupe. These are gorgeous. So gorgeous. This definitely is not a palette I use very much other than in the fall. You get some really like basic fall shades in here. You got a purple, you got a red, you got a green, you got these interesting blues that I would actually wear, and you guys know that I am very intimidated by blue eyeshadow, but these blues combined with like this in the crease and this on the lid create a really beautiful simple blue look that's not too blue. It's gorgeous. You get a basic copper as well, a nice basic brown and orange. I mean, again, what a perfect fall palette. It's like canyon colors and denim jackets. I mean, it's gorgeous. So for my C Color palette, which is pretty affordable, to this one, my most expensive palette in my collection. This is the Pat McGrath Mothership 6, I believe. This is the Midnight Sun palette. Look at this, you guys. Oh my goodness. It is so gorgeous. Again, great fall shades in here. You've got all your bases covered. Dark chocolatey, almost charcoal brown, a good mid-tone brown. You have a green. You have this really interesting like purple shade. Ooh, that is so sparkling and beautiful. I actually don't use that shade a ton. This is one of those shades I have to force myself to use, but when I do, it does create some really beautiful looks. And the Pat McGrath formula, though ridiculously expensive, is very good. I can't deny this is a fantastic formula. Oh, this is such a beautiful palette. These shades that she has right here, these glitter toppers, I can't open this palette and not demonstrate or swatch this shadow for you guys. It is truly, it's just pure sparkle. It is so pretty. If you've ever seen Pat McGrath's Instagram stories or like her Instagram account, any of her videos that she does, that's kind of what she's known for. Every model she ever does makeup looks on always has that glitzy, shiny, beautiful lid that a shade like this perfectly exemplifies kind of that style, and it's gorgeous. There is a reason people rave about these shadows. I kind of thought they were ridiculous for years. I still think the price is ridiculous, but it is, I can't deny it's amazing. I also on occasion in the fall like a good cool tone, so I wanted to pull out this palette, also from Cindy Grace. This is the Coffee Talk palette. Look at these beautiful cool tone shades. A palette similar to this one, if you don't own this palette, another one that's very similar, and I think I've said this before, is the That's Taupe palette from ColourPop. Similar tones. I decided to pull this one out though because it's a little bit newer to me, and I am just such a diehard Cindy Grace formula fan, so I definitely want to keep reaching for this fall. From Cool to Warm, one of my best warm tone eyeshadow palettes is the Patrick Ta Original Major Dimensions eyeshadow palette. I still really want to try the berry toned one. They're just so pricey, and I have so many great berry toned palettes in my collection, but I know everyone that's tried that palette seems to absolutely love it. The reviews on that one are insane. They're so good, but I just feel like I don't know. I feel like I missed the boat on that one, but I'm still tempted by it. But for now, I'm gonna enjoy using this palette this fall. Oh man, this is the most delicious chocolatey palette. You can get the most rich looking eye looks out of this. I love the formula. I actually have a pan right here that I'm holding in. Look at that. So sad. I just found that this one is loose. I need to glue it back in, but love the formulas on this. They're very interesting. Some of these shimmers are they're more like glitter toppers, like a cream sort of formula that you have to kind of build it up, but you can get some serious, I guess, major dimension out of this eyeshadow palette. Great name for it, because that's truly what it is. I love these cream browns. I love to pop these in the outer corner or on the lash line and then top them with these shades right here. You get the most rich intensity that is so stunning. Such a fantastic palette, and you can't beat a warm chocolatey look in the fall, which is why I also had to mention this one right here. This is the Huda Beauty Chocolate Brown palette. This one I have not used a ton. I got this one last fall, used it a little bit. They're very, very red toned brown. So initially I was a little surprised by that, but I do kind of like that. They're very unique tones. So looking at it, you think these are pretty basic. They all have this like subtle red or peach tone to it that makes them quite unique and very, very warm. I think this will be a perfect one to pull out with like a cozy cream sweater. Gorgeous little palette. I also had to pull this one right here. This is the Juvia's Place The Chocolates palette. Oh, I love my rich browns all year long, especially in the fall. And I love Juvia's Place's rich browns, especially their warmer rich browns, which this one has in abundance. This is gorgeous. I love this palette. This is again one of those palettes I feel like I need to reach for something else to get a complete look out of it, but I give it a pass because the shades are just so rich and beautiful. As for berry tones, I had to grab this one right here. This is from Nabla. This is the Wild Berry palette. And come to think of it, another option for a palette like this that's very similar to this one is the Juvia's Place The Mauves palette. There are a lot of similarities between these palettes. There's a shimmer in that Juvia's Place one that's very similar to this shade right here, which is Alchemy 2.0. That one also has a pink like this and like a deep kind of plum color like this. But I just love this one. It has that formula that I'm always raving about right here. And I love the other shades in here. I love that you get like a basic kind of berry pink for the lid. Or if you want to do a duochrome, you have that here as well. And you get some really nice richness. Really fun little palette if you like your berry tones. I had to grab this one. This is from BH Cosmetics. I know that they've recently come back with like some new stuff and new branding. I still haven't gotten online to check them out. Maybe I'll do that come this holiday season, but I'm not even sure if you can still buy this palette. This is the Avocado Toast palette, but I know a lot of people love this one, probably own this one because it's been around for a while. This one's a couple years old. Gorgeous if you like your greens. These ones are a little bit more vivid greens, but you do get some really good like deeper fall tones like these in here. Also these warm kind of plums and like red oranges. I love the lid shades that come in these palettes, like the travel ones and the food palettes like the blueberry one, the Hawaii palette. They all have the most beautiful lid shades in them. There are a couple of them in here as well. Really fun palette for fall. One that I feel like is a little bit neglected by me for how much I enjoy this palette. I really need to use it more and I feel like the fall is a perfect time to do that. Okay, then I've got these two right here, you guys. These are both from Juvia's Place. Again, I think these were discontinued. Then I thought I saw them back on their website. So if I can find these, I will link them down below for you guys. But there's hopefully a good chance if you own these, you didn't declutter them because they are amazing. This one right here is the Saharan 2 by Juvia's Place. Look at these tones, you guys. It is absolutely stunning. You get this beautiful like golden peach. You get a good kind of multi-dimensional gold right there. You get a bronze, a red. These two greens are so lovely. And then these, you guys, these just... they're like a velvet couch. They're so pretty. Such a delicious, rich palette. I love this one so much. If you don't happen to own this one, maybe you own the original, I think it's the Masquerade palette, the one that has like all the browns on top and then all the color, like the purples and blues on the bottom. That one kind of reminds me of this palette. So that one I think can create similar looks. I just especially love this one because I think you get some more unique shimmers in this one. But perhaps even more than that one is my love for this one right here, the Tribe palette from Juvia's Place. Such a fun palette. Look at this deep green down here, you guys. Oh my goodness. Look at that. Wow, that's insane. And then this one, which is like a brown, but it has like a smidgen of green in it. It's kind of like a khaki sort of brown. Oh, so stunning. Really interesting palette. Perfect for fall. This lime green is so fun. And now it's not a shade that I would like wear on the regular, on the everyday, but it's a fun one to throw into a look or just to add like a pop through the crease and then top it with like a brown or an orange or something like that. You also get a beautiful gold in here, a bronze. This teal is absolutely lovely. In my opinion, one of Juvia's Place's best, most interesting color stories and funnest palettes. It's amazing. One more and then we've got just a couple small ones to go. This one right here, this is the Grandeur palette from ColourPop. I love the packaging on this palette, by the way. This might be one of my very favorite ColourPop packaging designs that they have done. It's very like Victorian looking. I absolutely love it, but the shades inside are gorgeous. You do get a pressed glitter in here, which I don't use a lot, but if I'm doing a really glamorous look, they are kind of fun to throw onto the lid. And the other shades you get inside here are absolutely gorgeous and rich and lovely. I love this, like, it's kind of a matte with a whole lot of green sparkle inside. Just look at that, you guys. Oh my gosh, it's like the City of Oz at night. Then you get some good mattes in here. I love that you get this perfect champagne gold that goes with everything else inside here, and even duochrome. Really beautiful palette. If you happen to own this one, pull it back out. I think you can get some really good fall looks out of this. Okay, now a couple smaller palettes. Starting with this one right here. This is from Persona. This is the Persona Copper palette. This palette it's smaller, but it is one of the most perfectly curated palettes. You have like every basic you would need inside here to create the most perfect look. This champagne is so nice. It's so brightening, but it's also not overly shimmery. It's like the classic Persona shimmer formula. It's nice and bright and reflective without it being like chunky. It's kind of smoothing in a way. It's absolutely beautiful. Really great for brightening up the lid. I love the reddish copper that you get inside here. It is so pretty. And then you get a red and a deep brown and then a good transition shade. Whether you want to go light and neutral or you want to do something a little bit more smoky, you can definitely do it with this palette. And it's the great Persona formula that I really love. I also wanted to mention this one. I haven't used this one a ton, but I'm excited to pull it out again this fall. This is from ColourPop. This is their Taurus palette. Well, technically the Never Taurus Apart, which is a little cheesy. We'll just call it the Taurus palette, but this is such a great color story if you like your greens. I mean, just look at that. It's perfection. This is like a bronze, like a golden green, semi-duochrome. You get a nice champagne gold. This green is absolutely lovely. Very nice and rich, good deep brown. Great little quad if you happen to own this one. Perfect for fall. Another one that's perfect for fall, but I might like even better. This is one of the best palettes in my collection, which is crazy because it's tiny and it's super, super cheap. The Dancing Green palette from Essence. I think this, if I had to pick one of these palettes from Essence, all of which I love, this might be the one that I went with because there's just something very unique and special about this palette. If you're a fan of greens, this is so, so perfect. I love this deep green right here especially. It's a little bit, has like a touch of, it's not blue, but it has just that like blue tealy kind of undertone to it that just makes it extra beautiful. I love it so much. It's so pretty for smoking out the outer corner or adding to your lash line. Then you get some good basics in here, some really beautiful shimmers. It is an amazing palette. I remember the video where I tried this out for the first time, and I felt like that was one of the prettiest eye looks that I had done probably in the last 2 years. I still feel that way. Just two more. This one right here is the Huda Beauty Khaki Haze Obsessions palette. The formula of these palettes is not the best, but I loved the color story and the packaging of these. And this one in particular, I think this one has so many like beautiful options and a lot of variety considering you only get 6 shades inside here. Really, this was the only shade I had trouble with because it hard pans a little bit and doesn't give a lot of payoff and takes quite a bit of work to build up a little bit of like some dimension. Kind of reminds me of the Patrick Ta formula, but not done quite as well. But that said, I still really love this palette and I think it creates some really beautiful fall toned looks. Packaging again is like the prettiest situation ever. I love this. It looks like there's actually smoke inside there. Then you have this marbling detail on the back. Oh man, the packaging alone on these, especially this one, almost makes it worth it, even though a couple of the shadows in there are a little bit tricky. But if you don't want to spend an arm and a leg for a palette that's just so-so, then spend just a couple dollars for a palette that is amazing. This one right here, this is the My Lucky Charm palette from Wet n Wild. So gorgeous. If you like your greens and you don't want to spend more than $3 or $4, this is another one that I would highly recommend. You also get some coppers in here, which I think makes it a little bit more unique, a little bit fun. I do typically reach for something else when I reach for this palette. I'll grab one of their other palettes for a champagne or something a little bit lighter for my inner corner or my lid, but I still think it's worth it. I love these formulas. I think they're so good. They perform really well on me. This one's kind of more of like a creamy formula. It's really interesting, beautiful shades. This bronze has a bit of like green in it. It's really unique. I love all of these 5-pan palettes, as you guys know. I think they were done so well, and I still reach for these a lot. Even with my massive eyeshadow palette collection, I really enjoy using these palettes because I think they perform really well and the colors are really fun. So that is everything. Those are all of my selections. I could probably go through and pick out a few more. Thinking of a couple other berry toned palettes. I see my Mandalorian palette staring at me. I feel like I haven't used that one in a while either, but these are the ones that I am the most excited to use. So let's go through and pick out my top 5. So I have picked out my top 5 and I'm going to rank them for you guys. Again, these are just the top 5 that I am the most eager to use as fall gets here, as I pull out my sweaters and my boots. So coming in at number 5, I had to go with the Patrick Ta Major Dimensions eyeshadow palette. There's just something so special about the richness of this palette. I mean, you can get the most beautiful, rich looks. I think it is really just a combination of his good formula, the variety of textures in here, and they really are quite unique, especially when you build things on top of each other. It just gives you something extra special. The shades are perfectly done if you like your warm browns. Good range and dimension from light to dark. It's just a very well done palette that's kind of unique. It's unique within my collection, especially because the formulas and finishes are just so different. So gonna go with this one for my like warm brown palette. Ranked at number 4, this might surprise you guys, this tiny little thing right here, the Dancing Green palette. There truly is something special about this palette, and it's just so perfect for fall, but it's also a little bit different. I have a lot of green palettes that I really love. A lot of them I went through with you guys that have different tones of green, but I just love the combination of like this teal green, then you have like a teal shimmer, you have this kind of silvery green, and then you have these ones that are a little bit more on the khaki side. Whether you want to stick with like the bluer tones or the khaki tones or combine them together, you can get some really interesting and beautiful looks out of these 6 simple, super cheap shadows. And even if you're someone that's intimidated by green, or you feel like you wouldn't reach for something as dark as that, everything else in here is very neutral. So don't be thrown off by that dark vivid green right there. Though I personally love it, even without that shade, I think this palette is well worth the $4 or $5 that you spend on it. Or is it 3 or 4? It's cheap. It's under $5, which is a steal for this thing. Ranked at number 3, I went with my Saharan 2 by Juvia's Place. This is another one of those palettes that whenever I open this one up, especially when I see like these shades right here and this like seafoam golden green, it's just so special. You get such great richness out of these beautiful deep burgundy reds, which I love those tones, especially in the fall. They're deliciously warm, but you also get a little bit of color in here. You have all your neutrals covered. It's just such a fun and inspiring palette to play with, and I cannot wait to do some beautiful looks with this in the next couple of months. Then at number 2, had to go with my Natasha Denona Safari palette again. This is like one of my go-tos, one of the first ones I think of every fall season. I'll even reach for this periodically throughout the year on occasion, but in the fall, like this just gives me all the fall feels. This is just such a great palette. I love it so much. The richness of the shades in here, I think is amazing. I've heard some people say they didn't like this palette as much or didn't think the formula was as good. I've never had issues with them though, and I just think the color setup is so much fun. It's so beautiful. Love Natasha Denona's quality, and this is definitely one I'm very eager to pull out and use. And then last but not least, if you had one guess, what would you guess? Would it happen to be this one right here? My Nomad palette. A part of me didn't want to pick this one because I know I pick it every single year. And I know every ranking video that I do, this ranks so high, but you guys, I think this is such a perfectly done palette. It's so beautiful. It's so much fun. It's neutral, but it's also not boring. It's kind of interesting. It's rich, it's beautiful. You have your browns, you have your greens, and I can't say enough good things about this shade in the middle. I almost wish there was 2 of these in here. If I could make one change to this palette, I would put this exact same shade in this corner. I don't know. I don't know which of these yellows I would pick. I'd probably put it in this right here. I like that more vivid yellow. It does have a bit of sparkle in it, but I think this one's a little bit more like a functional shade. But I would love to have 2 of these golds because I use this thing like crazy. Even when I'm not using this palette, I'll reach for this. And it is just so perfectly done, and it screams fall to me. Even the packaging, everything about this is my perfect fall palette. And that's it, you guys. Those are my dozens of eyeshadow palettes that I'm really excited to use this fall. My guess is I probably won't even end up using every single one, but I'm going to try and squeeze each one of them in if I can, even if I have to do my makeup twice a day. I want to try and use each of those palettes at least one time over the next couple months. I'd love to know what you guys thought. What palettes are you most eager to use as things start to cool off as we move into the fall season? Or for those of you that are not going into the fall season, for those of you in the southern hemisphere, what are you guys excited to use as the seasons change? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoyed this one today. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope that you'll consider subscribing before you leave, and I will see all of you in my next video. Bye. Have you guys ever tried these before? The Nerds gummy clusters. Such a delicious candy that I used to buy the ropes for my kids when they were little, thinking that's disgusting. Like, that's such a childish food to eat. They weren't wrong. These are good. Oh gosh, what am I trying to think of? That like gothic romantic era. There's a name for it. It's escaped me. Victorian, that's it. Okay. So we better get started. Stop eating your, let me put these away. They're distracting me. I keep popping them in my mouth and then I can't talk. We could do a mukbang video where I just eat a bunch of Nerds clusters. I do have 2 different flavors in my bag. They all taste the same.